folks. Hello there, folks. All right. Hearing the call and response, I take it that you can hear me. For those of you that I haven't had a chance to meet yet, I'm Ben Spagan. I'm Vice President here at the Jefferson Educational Society. I'm going to be kicking off tonight's event, which we've very much been looking forward to. And I say we, as I assume you, the audience, but we as a team, because I think part of the excitement of what happens at a think tank is having open discussion and dialogue amongst a team that yields things like a program titled "It's a Bad Time to Be a Tyrant." And so we're really looking forward to tonight, and I don't want to take up too much time because we want to get to our president, Dr. Ferki Ferati, in tonight's presentation. First, I'm going to ask you to join me and take out your mobile devices, place them in silent or airplane mode out of courtesy for tonight's presenter, as well as your fellow patrons. But do feel free to take notes, take pictures, but please just keep them in silent or airplane mode. I'm going to go over a few housekeeping things, including telling you about upcoming events. If you've been here before, you know the drill. We're going to be taking questions following the presentation. We're going to be using microphones. One of our team members will come around with a microphone. So if you have a question, just simply raise your hand and they will come to you. My favorite kind of questions are just that, questions, not lengthy statements, not speeches, not monologues, but actual questions. And if we can keep them short, that guarantees we can get to as many of them tonight as we can before we conclude the event. Now, one of the things that I said I would do is tell you about some upcoming events. It's a good, busy week for the JES. So delighted to see that we've got some folks from Corry, Pennsylvania with us here tonight, which is a good reminder that for those living elsewhere throughout the county and attending tonight's programs, you could head to Corry, Pennsylvania, because we have programming happening out there. That's one of our 4 satellite locations. And tomorrow night, we're going to learn from Kimberly Hawks and Shelby Scouten, who will present the Emerging Corry Fund of the Corry Community Foundation, what it is, why it matters, and how you can get involved. Our programming that happens out in Corry is a big thanks in part to, of course, one of our sponsors for that, Erie Insurance, that helps ensure that all of our satellite events are free of charge, but also our partners in these parts of the community, and that includes the Corry Higher Education Council, where tomorrow night's program will happen. Then we are on to programming on Wednesday, another satellite location. A big thanks to Harbor Creek Township Municipal Building for hosting us there. In case you missed the event here, George Deitch is offering a look at the relationship of the U.S. and Putin from 2000 to the Ukraine war. That'll happen at Wednesday at 6 p.m. Out in Harbor Creek. We do take a break on Thursday. It's okay, because we're right back at it on Friday. We are having a community conversation, a series that's gone really well for us. At noon, you can tune in to a program here. Tina Mangine, the head of the Erie County Redevelopment Authority, is going to be talking about Grow Erie, revitalizing and reimagining investment in the community. Now, that happens at noon. That's lunchtime. If you're hungry and want to bring your own lunch, you're free to do that. If you'd like to order a lunch, you can do that. These events are free, but it's just $5 if you want to have us order a lunch for you. And then that concludes this week. We have more in the winter term, but some of you might be wondering, and maybe it's because of some of the emails or phone calls I've gotten of what's ahead for spring schedule. Well, just you wait. We're getting started. One I can tease out is we will start the spring term, mark your calendars, on Monday, April 7th. We're going to start with a visiting speaker panel. We are going to take a look at what is happening in Washington, D.C., the first 100 days of the Trump administration. A good friend of the JES and an important contributor and team member, Steve Scully, the chairman of the Global Summit and the host of the briefing on SiriusXM, will moderate a panel discussion between Jay Cost, who has been here twice for our Global Summits. He is with the American Enterprise Institute. He will be joining Molly Reynolds, who is a senior fellow from governance studies at the Brookings Institution, and Amy Parnes, an award-winning author and senior political correspondent for The Hill. So that panel discussion kicks things off for our spring schedule on Monday, April 7th. We may like it, we may not like it, we may understand it, we may not understand it, but it is important to talk about the first 100 days of an administration, and we can think of a panel no better than that put together by Mr. Scully. Other programs that we are excited for in the spring term, which you should be getting brochures in your mail in about a week and a half to 2 weeks. We have our Civic Leadership Academy is presenting a deeper dive into their findings on mental health, particularly impacting adolescents and youth. That's going to happen as one of our community conversations on Friday, April 25th. We invite you to attend that to learn more. Also invite you to think about the folks that you know that may benefit from a program like the Jefferson Civic Leadership Academy and encourage them to apply, because we are currently recruiting for the 2025 cohort. We are looking forward to working again with emerging leaders in our community. So maybe somebody in your life network or orbit would be interested in that. Plenty more to come with the spring schedule. We'll have details on our website like right now. So if you go home and check jeserie.org, you'll find some of our programs and much more to come. But of course, that's not why we're here. We're here to hear from the JES's president, Dr. Ferki Ferati. Now, he has been with the JES since its very beginning, and I've been so honored to have been a part of that journey for 10 years now. But he has been here, from the very beginning, the idea of a think tank, the launch of a think tank, and it is remarkably difficult to look around at the work that the JES does today and not see the thumbprint and fingerprints of Ferki Ferati, who joined as the first director of research and operations and has been promoted all the way to president, and that happened in 2017. Now guiding and leading the organization, overseeing all of its work, including the start of the Global Summit, from a growth of a 2.5-day event to now something that spans a month and brings in tremendous headliners with global impact and international recognition, to creating the aforementioned Civic Leadership Academy, something else our president did. But one of the things that I really admire about him the most is that he, like I like to think about myself, and perhaps you like to think about yourselves, is a lifelong learner, somebody who's always curious, wants to dive into issues, wants to talk about them. And when an occasion comes up, he certainly rises to it to be able to present his insights, his knowledge, and walk us through a journey of not just easy things to present about, but tough conversations. And so we are so grateful to have him on behalf of our entire team and our board of trustees, and of course, our JES members and our patrons here tonight. Please join me in issuing the warmest of JES welcomes to our president, Dr. Ferki Ferati.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, folks. It's good to see so many familiar faces here. Our vice president always does the right thing, Mr. Spagan. It's been an honor to work with you and the team here. Unlike the people we're going to talk to, I do have a board that does elect me, and I've not run out my welcome so far. So I see quite a few board members. If I miss you, I'm sorry, but I see Bill here, Paul and Judy, and Tom Tepizza's here, and who else am I missing? Well, thanks for the leadership and for enabling the Jefferson team to do what we do best. This idea came because of Charles Brock. Actually, we used to sit in his office and talk about the funny ways that dictators and tyrants have died, and and then Assad was basically kicked out of Syria, and I said, this is the perfect time to do one of these lectures, because I was there when the first tyrant of the 21st century was taken down in Slobodan Milosevic, right? And I had noticed that there had been a lot of dictators that have fallen in, or tyrants that have fallen in the 21st century. So I came up with this idea. I'm like, is it really a good thing if you were an aspiring tyrant? Should you pick this career choice? And it turns out you have about 40% chance of dying. Well, at any rate, so that's why we're here to talk about this. And we're going to explore some of the fallen tyrants of the 21st century. I do want to say hi to my wife and kids. Hi, Adrian. Hi, Victor and Mira and Katya and my mom. They're watching from home. I told them I'd say hello. So at any rate, thanks for being here. Let's get it going. All right. So I've established one thing in my life is that I have no use for tyrants. And that is due to really my lived experiences. I was born and raised in Kosovo. We were in a democratically elected dictatorship. And this guy by the name of Milosevic decided that 95% of the people in Albania, or Kosovo, I'm sorry, didn't deserve the same rights as the 5%. And it was a communist country, and it was really dark for the first 16 years of my life. Just an example, in school, we had counselors that would come in and would ask what's going on at home, right? Trying to get intel through the kids. And I know at least of one occasion where the kid was mad at their parents and said something they shouldn't, and then their parents disappeared. It is not a lot of fun to be on it. In 1989, the Serbs decided, or Milosevic decided, that he was going to replace all the police, all the firefighters, everybody in leadership in this country of Kosovo, where 95% of the people were Albanians. He was going to replace them all with Serbians. He came with a thing, only the Serbs can serve the interest of Serbia. And the people of Serbia really bought into it because they killed a couple hundred Bosnians, a couple 100,000 Bosnians, about 30,000 Albanians. And my dad, in 1989, was one of the first people to rebel against it. And he quit his job and sort of joined the resistance, and which led until 1997 with a full-scale war. We were on the road for about 2 years, going through the same things as the people of Ukraine are doing. And finally, we ended up in a refugee camp and then came to the United States through an executive order. So my personalized experience is to tell you folks that the vast majority of humans that are living right now don't have the freedoms that y'all have. And you should work very hard. We should work very hard to keep these freedoms. The other thing is, thank you. The other thing is my wife is Russian. I studied abroad in Russia while it was a semi-democracy in 2006. And Russia was a different place. It was not the modern Rome it has become. When I traveled in the smaller cities in Russia, a lot of them were doing better because they controlled their own destiny. We're doing better than Moscow and St. Petersburg. Fast forward 20 years later, you go into Russia, and Moscow is the cleanest, wealthiest city in Europe. Everybody is doing phenomenal there. So are they doing in St. Petersburg. The rest of Russia has changed completely. Last time I was in Russia was 2 weeks before the Ukrainian invasion. And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who was the best man at my wedding. And the thing he told me, basically, I try to engage him in what's going on in Ukraine. He lives in Moscow, right? And basically told me to be quiet. I didn't get it, but I did remain quiet. Later, he says, hey, can we go have a smoke? I'm like, he doesn't smoke. He told me to leave my phone there. And then we went outside. It's like, don't talk politics with me. Nothing is safe. You go to places in Russia where my wife is from, in Cheboksary. There's FSB agents everywhere. What Putin did in 2014 was basically take the military budget and put it to enhance the FSB, the state police, basically. And folks aren't allowed to contradict what's happened in the Kremlin. How many times have you heard in the last 2 years of people falling from the 5th floor? Or an accident here or an accident there? That's what happens to folks in a totalitarian system. Cheboksary is now a third world city in 20 years because all of the self-determination avenues have been taken away. So nobody can do anything about economic development. Nobody can do anything about anything unless Kremlin decides that's what they need to do. And what we see now is a complete and utter lies being told to the Russian people. Where I was just talking to my wife. Her first cousin's husband, 42 years old, bam, done, dead in Ukraine. This older lady that she knows, her 18-year-old son, only son, died in Ukraine. And when people ask what happened to our kids or our men, is they are given one of the excuses. It's either they deserted, the military, so they left. They never joined the military in the first place, or they died of opioids. I would bet you anything that there is no one dying in Ukraine that is related in any way, shape, or form to Vladimir Putin or anyone he knows. The people that are being sent to Ukraine to fight are from these small towns, smaller towns like my wife's town, Cheboksary. And it's heartbreaking to see because the Russian people don't deserve this. But they have no choice. Everybody's like, there's no protest in Russia. How can there be protest when the minimum sentence is 10 years for protesting the war? So that's another reason why I hate tyrants and dictators. They don't care about the average person. And the other one is I read a lot of books. I've studied history. And really, dictators are few in between. A few good ones in between the many, many bad ones. Throughout history, as we will show in the next slides, is been really dark for the average person until more recent times. I tell folks that there's a great book that left a impression on me. It's called Are We Rome? Are We Rome? And the author makes a case that today it's still a fight between Cicero and Caesar, right? Cicero was a Republican, and Caesar was an autocrat. Cicero, after 1900 years of being in the dark, as we will get into that, appeared in Western Europe and in the United States. And Caesar moved to Russia. That's what Tsar means. Tsar means Caesar. So the fight between the two still continues to this day. And it's a back and forth. So with that said, I do want to say that, you know, in honor of Charlie, as we used to discuss funny ways that dictators have died, I'm gonna give you a few of those examples. Let's start with King Charles the Seventh or Eighth of France, who really did some evil things in Italy, trying to become an emperor himself. And most people thought he'd never go away. He was just walking around in the castle and bam, hit his head and died. That was funny. Qin Shi Huang is the first emperor of China. That's another one. And he was obsessed with living forever. So he would try all kinds of new things that were being discovered. And it worked. It sent him to the eternal life. He got mercury poisoning and died. I am going to have this guy, the third one. Who wants to read it? Huh? So I'm not the only one. Okay. Now, we've read about him when I was reading Gibbon's book on the history of the Roman Empire, and I just found it hilarious. This guy was brutal to his people. He would hold these parties. He was a partier. They did a lot of heroin that they would bring in from Afghanistan and so on and so forth. He would kill a lot of his guests. He'd invite people and be like, hey, let's have a party, and then just feed them to the lions. Until his own guards essentially turned on him, threw him down the Roman sewer system and into the river, and he was gone. That's what you do with those bastards. Crassus. Who here remembers Crassus? I did a lecture on this a while back, but Crassus was oh boy, I'm going to get in trouble for this. He was the Elon Musk of his day. He was the richest person in Rome. He is the only one that was able to bring down Spartacus, if you remember. And he crucified all of the slaves all the way from Appian to Rome and all that stuff. So they ended up splitting Rome, the Roman Republic, right, in three dictators. You had Pompey, you had Julius Caesar, and you had Crassus. Crassus wanted the Near East, like Egypt and Libya and so on and so forth, because there's a lot of gold there. So in an effort to go and get more money and more gold, he and his troops get caught by the Parthians, and they all get killed. And the king, his name is escaping me, but of the Parthians, he takes Crassus while he's still alive, molds a whole bunch of gold, and throws it down his throat. Take that money, eh? King Alexander of Greece. Now, he's more of a monarch, didn't really have a lot of power, but it's still funny that he got killed by his monkey. His monkey bit him, and he died of an infection. Speaking of infection, This one is Sigurd the Mighty was a Viking warlord. He was brutal. They would invade small towns and villages, and just the worst imaginable stuff they would do to folks. Well, he caught one of his opposition, cut off his head, and while he's getting on the horse, the tooth of the guy scrapes him on his leg, and then he dies of an infection, which is hilarious. We all know Caligula. Caligula was a child that was given absolute power. And he could not care about anyone else. There's many stories where he would go into somebody's wedding and rape either the wife to be or the husband to be, to show his power. And there was the last straw, which was he wanted to make, one of the things he said was, my horse is smarter than most of the Senate, so I'm going to make him a senator. And his own guards did not think that was appropriate. So gone he was. Adolf Fredrik of Sweden. I lived in Sweden for about 2 years, from 92 to 94. And there was commercials of this giant king eating Snickers. And it was Adolf Fredrik. They were making, it's satire in Sweden. He had a sweet tooth. And one evening he ordered a 14-round dessert and died from it. Kind of funny. Emperor Humayun was of India. He was a book wizard. And many people just really were against him because that's all he did was read books. And then one day he dropped a book and hit a table, I believe, with his head and died. So there are honorable mentions. You've got Julius Caesar, the Ides of March. Muammar Gaddafi of Libya. They found him on a pipe or whatever the heck it was. Yeah, and then they dragged him through the streets and they killed him. Saddam Hussein. You know, it's one thing about, well, we'll get into it later, but the way he was killed. Joseph Stalin, they made a comedy about his death. It's called Stalin, right? He had an aneurysm and lived for 3 days while his closest advisors watched him die because everybody was afraid to touch him. And we've got the coward Adolf Hitler. We all know that. Mussolini. We all know him hanging on the streets. Nicholas II was probably one of the most evil people there is. He would gather young Russian men and would sell them to the Ottoman Empire for the equivalent of about $10,000 in today's money. And he sold hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them who would leave and never come back until the Russian people. It's always like folks, when they talk about the fall of the last Tsar of Russia, they say it's the inequalities. Not really. They have inequalities all the time. What he was doing is the Russian mothers got tired of not seeing their kids, And they are the ones that got the opening for the Bolsheviks to come in. And when they executed him, the executioner that shot him botched it. So he was shot like 8 or 9 times, and he still wouldn't die. So that was... And then John David, although not a dictator, this is an interesting story because of Alexander Hamilton, right? He was Dutch, and so was Alexander Hamilton. So one of the things, when Jefferson was talking about, you know, the wisdom of the people, of the masses, Alexander Hamilton comes and hears this and says, that's nonsense. You don't know about the masses. For they are a giant beast who once aroused will devour you. And he actually knew that that's happened because John David was a populist elected prime minister. And he made all these promises, and when he got into office, basically the economy did one of these. And there was a mob that literally got together, went to the Capitol building, took John David and his brother and ate them. So he meant devour you in literal sense. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the history of democracies. And I'm here to tell you that there was a small light in Greece and Carthage and Rome with democracies. Otherwise, it's been dark for all of human history. And I'm picking up here right around the late 1700s, because that's the graph I found. But you look at it, the percentage of human beings on earth who lived in closed autocracies was nearly 100% for most of human history. You see here, America does not show up in 1776 because it was a closed autocracy. You had to own land, you had to be white, you had to be a man, so it doesn't show up as a democracy up until very faintly it shows up as an electoral autocracy post-Civil War, and then it increases and it becomes a full electoral democracy when the women get the right to vote in 1919. There's a lot of misconceptions about what happened in World War II. Who was fighting? Everybody that I talk to needs to do a little bit more reading because it was not dictatorship versus democracies that was fighting. It was anti-fascists, because the darkest, most authoritarian place on earth at the end of World War II was Russia. And the freest place on earth was the United States. And it is the efforts of the United States starting World War II where a big majority of humans starting to see light and justice. And I'll take you to this one. So you are in the 18th century. You have about 100% of the people on earth that lived under an autocracy. By the 19th centuries, you have a few places in Europe, a little bit in the United States, 20th century. This is 100 years ago, folks. You're talking about 75% of humans on Earth lived in an autocracy. And the next two things here, I'm going to debate these a little bit, because I think it's a narrative issue, because by 2000, 58% of the world was living in democracy. What a turnaround 100-year makes. And the authors of the information where I got this are saying that now we're talking about 70% of people living under autocracies, but they include India, which is 18% of the world population. They're saying that India is an autocracy, and I think they just have a jerk of a leader. But he has been electorally elected. So I don't know if I would put India under autocracy. And if you don't put India under an autocracy, we're at 76% of humans today live outside of autocracies, at least full autocracies or closed autocracies. So with that said, we're gonna look at some of the fallen tyrants of the 21st century. And I gotta preface this by saying there are some of these countries that I don't know much about. So if you have specific questions, a lot of these folks could have their own lecture. So I'm just briefly gonna mention some of the folks in here. But of course, we're going to start with Slobodan Milosevic, who orchestrated ethnic cleansing. I have been ethnically cleansed from Kosovo, though not through death, and 300,000 others that are all over the world. The Bosnians have lost 400,000 people, depending on who you're listening to. And essentially, he was forced to resign, but it is NATO that took him out of commission. And he was taken to Hague to face a trial for his crimes against humanity. And he was too much of a coward to face them, and he died in prison. It would have been a great day to we have from Haiti, Aristide. Yeah, he was, what he did based on what I read here is basically what's still going on there, which is he was a leader that used the gangs of Haiti to enrich himself. And eventually mass protests happened, and he was forced to exile the country. Charles Taylor, we all saw him in the 2000s and late 1990s, early 2000s in Liberia. And boy, was he an evil, evil person. What he did to his own people is unimaginable. And he was convicted of crimes against humanity. Saddam Hussein is another one. He fell in 2003 with US intervention. There's a lot of folks that have put us at fault, the United States, for his demise. But the world is a better place without Saddam Hussein in power. The dude was one of the most evil people on earth at his demise. What he did to his own people by the millions, what he did to the Kurds by the millions, what he was advocating for. The United States, we were in a lot of pain at that time. And this guy was on TV every day saying, death to America, death to America. And America reacted, as we have seen. So just he put chemical weapons on his own people. That is, there's a scene of him in front of the parliament where he just names people in the parliament. He reads their names and takes them out and shoots them, forces his people to shoot him. So just an evil, evil person. Zelaya in Honduras, he was a tyrant wannabe, and what he was trying to do is maintain power indefinitely. And there was a military coup. Military said, and he was deposed of and was sent to Costa Rica, where I believe he still is. The Ivory Coast guy, Gbagbo, yeah, look at that. He is a similar story to the Honduras dude. He also wanted to remain in power. And the French, because it's the Ivory Coast, did not want to have any of it. And they orchestrated rebellion and got him out of office, where he was forced to leave the country. And now he's back, by the way, and running for president. So, bad dude. Oh, yeah. I was going to say something political, but I won't. All right. Ben Ali of Tunisia, he was one of the first ones to fall in the Arab Springs. And, you know, just like the typical Middle Eastern dictator, abuse his people, amass a large amounts of wealth, and send that wealth to Switzerland and wash it in their river and live lavish lifestyles in Europe. And he was one of those folks, and he fled Tunisia in 2011. Mubarak, similar story, from Egypt. He ran one of the most complex state police systems on earth. And you have to be that kind of a person to keep Egypt under check. I've been to Egypt. The sheikhs run the country. And he bought them. The ones that didn't want to be bought, he executed them. He spied on his own people. He spied on his own family. And he is now in Switzerland, I believe, and took about $3 billion. A lot of it of American aid money, by the way. Took it with him, and he's living like a king in Switzerland. We have Gaddafi. We talked about Gaddafi earlier. Gaddafi was not always this cuckoo person he became at the end of his regime. Gaddafi he had a philosophy that we have to bring Islam to where it was, 400 or 500 years ago, where they valued science and valued poetry, and the Muslims basically are the reason why we have the math and algebra and all these things that came out of Persia. He wanted to create that new world for Islam. In fact, the best universities for a long time in the Muslim world were in Libya, until he became paranoid and decided that he wanted to stay in power forever, and started doing the same thing as his rest of his comrades in the Middle East were. Morsi, he was part of the Mubarak regime, came in charge, and was continuing the same type of oppression of his own people. And there was a military coup in 2013 that ousted him. Burkina Faso, see, that's an African country that I don't know where the heck it is. What is it? Oh, there you go. See? I need to go back to school. He orchestrated a coup and did the same things that we before mentioned, folks, and a lot of corruption and a lot of killing of innocent people, and then protested in 2014, and he fled the country. Victor is another Elon Musk of Ukraine. I'm sorry to say it, but that's what he was. He was he was the wealthiest Ukrainian there is, and was basically running a shadow government of the Russian people, of Putin in Ukraine. See, this is where I get annoyed by the folks that are saying, well, you know, it's their next door country, what do we do? What's the point of having self-determination, independence, if you can't be independent? What he did to Ukrainian people to try to take them from the new taste of freedom that they had since the fall of the Berlin Wall, and try to take them back. And there was mass protests in Kiev. He led the police to open fire on mostly young people, killed a few hundred of them. There was mass protests around the country, and he fled, and he lives in Russia along his buddy Putin and Assad. Bashir, Sudan, again, we don't talk about him very often, but boy, is he in charge of killing a lot of human souls. The biggest world refugee population is from Sudan, because of the doing of this guy. And there was finally a military coup, and I believe he fled, but I am not sure because I forgot. Oh, maybe he did die. It'll come back to me. But at any rate, my goodness, some of those videos that you see of what happened in Sudan, you've seen movies around it, they are not exaggerated. Where they killed soldiers and killing of families and drugging children to fight in war. It was all orchestrated by this person. Bouteflika is another person from Algeria, but he was a dictator wannabe and wanted to extend his terms indefinitely, and got overthrown by the people. And Morales of Bolivia is, he basically faked elections. Apparently so did we in 2020. But anyways, he faked elections and tried to overthrow the Constitution, and was resigned because of military pressure. And Ghani in Afghanistan, he was sort of our guy in Afghanistan, but he was a bad guy. Everybody is thinking, why was the Taliban so successful so quickly? Well, it's because of this dude. He was corrupt. He was doing secret policing on his own people. There was no freedoms unless you were in his inner circle. So the people of Afghanistan said, hey, the new boss is like the old boss. Maybe we should bring the old boss back. And that's what happened. Sri Lanka, Rajapaksa. I have to read on this dude because Sri Lanka is going through a lot of problems right now. And he was part of the problem there that led to massive famine of his own people. And eventually he was forced out and he fled the country. And the person that got this whole lecture going, al-Assad, man, there's not a punishment severe enough for a person like that. Not on this earth, at least. Millions of people were forced to flee their lives. He dropped chemical weapons that killed tens of thousands of people in an instant. His own people. And when I talk about hating tyrants, even the good ones are bad because they chose to keep it going. A true good leader will figure out a succession of its own people so that they can lead their own lives. And even people like Marcus Aurelius, who knew better. Even a person like Augustus, he knew better. You read his writings, they knew better. And yet they still chose to keep it going. So, again, I reiterate, the only good tyrant is a dead one. And with that, I do have one quote. Oh, wait. Oh, my God. Yeah. Who's next? All right. I forgot about this part of my lecture. I thought I took it out. So I'll just quickly go through it. We all know my love for Vladimir Putin, so we won't get into that. I'm being sarcastic, by the way. Xi Jinping, the difference between Russia and China has always been that the Chinese Red Party is about the party. And Russian dictatorship is about the person. That's the difference, right? Until Xi Jinping, who has basically installed himself as a ruler for life. And what he's doing to the Muslim populations, where 7 million Muslims have been riled up and put in the work camps. And it's just, and the spying of his own people, he is an autocrat as autocrat can get. Kim Jong-un, I don't know what to say about this dude, except it would be a great thing if there is a higher power for the dude just to be, it would be nice. Iran, they have a little bit of democracy, but not at the top level. Still, the buck falls with the supreme leader. Venezuela, same thing. Nicaragua, Tajikistan. He's the Tajikistan guy. He's the first one that outlawed the word COVID. The people of Tajikistan could not even talk about COVID without going to jail. It sounds like Erie there, but it's not. Maybe it is Erie County. No, just Eritrea is under dictatorship. Cameroon, Uganda, Guinea, Egypt, Turkey. I think that's a little unfair. I debated whether to put him on there. He's just like the Indian leader. He's just a jerk. But he is electorally elected into office. And so far, the rule of law is still there in Turkey. That's why they haven't been kicked out of NATO yet. Myanmar, we saw this on the news. The leader, I forget her name, she was forced out in a military coup because of the way she treated the Muslim population in Myanmar. And of course, Afghanistan, which is under, is it Afghanistan? Yeah, which is under the rule of the Taliban. So those are the things, but I have a message for those folks. You better change your ways, because history shows us, MLK, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And it's coming your way. It's only a matter of time. So with that, I'll take any questions.
With all of the individuals that have left their country with their wealth, has there ever, or is there any attempt to recover or recoup any of that money?
I was in Geneva in Switzerland maybe 10 years ago, and I was having an argument with a professor at one of their universities there who, America, 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 and you guys do this and you guys do that, and we in Switzerland, we love peace and all that stuff. And finally I had enough of the guy. I'm like, why are you priding yourself that you stayed neutral to Adolf Hitler? You stayed neutral. Your rivers are covered in blood. Because what they do is they take the money that is covered in blood and tears and wash it for those folks. And it's untraceable. And they take pride on this kind of stuff. And I don't think there's anything to be proud of for washing Slobodan Milosevic money, Taylor's money, all of these folks. Mubarak has maybe a couple $2 billion of US money that he took with him. So yeah, they're really good at washing the money and for it to not be traced. Then they end up in a place like either Russia or Switzerland, where they love their dictators. So there's really not a way to trace it back. Some of it maybe, but not really.
When it was the Soviet Union and it called Red China, there was always cross-border clashes between those two countries. If you're looking at Xi today and Putin, do these two dudes really trust each other, or is it like a photo op?
It's a photo op. Russia, Russia cannot survive without joining the European Union in a long term. In a population, not with its current borders at least, its population is dwindling. They have brain drain that you wouldn't believe. And then you have, since 2010, about 4 million Chinese have left China into Russia and Russian territory. So they have a huge border integrity coming up. And as I said, the Chinese they took, the whole thing. There's no such thing as permanent enemies and permanent friends, only permanent interests. That's what they're doing. If there is a way that they can contradict the United States, because we are the antidote. We have been the antidote of humans moving from total autocracies into a place of justice. And it is in their best interest for the United States to no longer be here, to not be the antidote that we have been. And, I've said this, I have the utmost faith in the United States because I have met the military of the United States. They're different than the Russians, than the French, than the Germans. It's just when I came to Kosovo, for example, the most Americans are like, oh, we got to get to know these people, right? Where the French, little, like, you're no good. So they look at the rest of the world as smaller in terms of humanity, the American military. And I've studied history in terms of military. I've studied history, and there's never been, in my opinion, a greater force for good than the United States military. And hopefully we will be around for a lot longer so that more people can join the light. Because coming from experience, that's not a life worth living. When you're living your life for your government, not vice versa. It's brutal. Other questions? Huh? All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.